first and foremost, Quest Software, kind of our mantra is where next meets now. And as Ron called out, we are a software company. That is our bread and butter. That's what we focus on 100%. So, we've been in the industry, actually, as it happens, for 30 plus years. Large company with over 4,000. I'll go back to that previous slide there for a second. James jumping ahead of me.
Yep.
4,000 employees, about $1 billion in revenue, and 100 plus countries is where we reside. So yeah, definitely software focused 100%. So as we kind of think about the case portfolio, and that's what we're going to talk about today, we're made up of several products within our business unit, right? And as Ron mentioned, our primary focus is endpoint management and security, right? Why do we couple those two things together? Because, managing that endpoint's fine, but security should be in the forefront of everyone's mind today. So, when we present this kind of wheel of products, if you will, we often present it in a way where we do so as if this is a life cycle, right? So within our portfolio, we have our case system deployment appliance, which is really hyper-focused on deploying those operating system images to our devices. Within that too, we have our case system management. So all the things from just inventory asset management to software distribution and the automating of those processes and workflows to patching both the operating systems and third-party applications. That solution kind of fits nicely. And then kind of pivoting, because we don't want to hyper-focus only on the device-centric side of security and management. We also need to ensure that our user and the interactions of our users are also done in a secure manner. We have two products, both Case Desktop Authority and Privilege Management. They're really hyper-focused, as I mentioned, on that kind of user side of the security. And then we have a solution we got to present a few weeks back. It's very heavily used within the healthcare industry as well as financial to assist with doing remote scanning. So here today we're talking about VDI sessions, right? One of the things that perhaps isn't often considered is, within that VDI session, how do you do tasks like scanning, right, or capturing images? Well, remote scan creates a kind of virtual secure tunnel to allow you to use those physically attached devices and traverse into those VDI sessions to kind of eliminate the kind of monotony of copy pasting them to shares, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have our Case Cloud mobile device management solution as well. This obviously allows us to kind of do the gamut of those mobile devices out there that are constantly being thrown at us. So, as we continue to kind of break what the status quo is for the types of devices we're using, we need to consider how to bring these in to the house and manage as well. But today, and really what we're going to focus on now is, that where now meets, or where next meets now, that mantra is really, we're seeing something change in the industry, right? This whole approach of what we'll call legacy management is really pivoting to kind of this new industry standard that's referred to as unified endpoint management, right? The UEM statement. And when you think about that, many of the big hitters out there, Microsoft, VMware, all have taken this approach where they've created kind of a cloud-first approach, right? And so what that does is, regardless of the type of device that you have, it's really taking this, what we'll kind of call modern management methodology, and targeting these devices in a way in which they start being managed or almost be performing like a mobile device, right? So I think about Windows 10. More and more Windows is kind of pushing them to become more managed like a mobile device. And UEM is really all focusing on solving that problem as the underlying technologies in which we're managing and securing are accomplished, right? But here's the thing, our approach here at Case is that, we fully understand that not everybody's ready to adopt 100% a cloud approach, and that quite honestly, those modern management capability sets that exist out there really aren't sufficient for the enterprise space. we've kind of always had this philosophy here at Case since, the issue of UEM or EMM has hit the market. That's always been our future thinking strategy, is that we need to kind of look at creating a co-managed kind of legacy while also getting the benefits of modern management as well in order to create a solution set. Now, the cool thing is, like the strategy we put out and had kind of always stuck to our guns on for the foreseeable future of this kind of, best of both worlds is been validated at this point. Right? You guys likely have seen articles from Microsoft's of the world, VMware, where they're starting to also take now what we'll call like a co-managed or a hybrid approach, giving the best of both worlds. So they're kind of working backwards to align with what our strategy was here as we attacked this problem. So what are the things that we can do? First and foremost, I want to talk about the flexibility of our solutions, right? And I promised I was going to get into demos, but when you think about what it is we're solving and what operating systems, the good news here is there's really no limit to what Case can do, right? We have full support for your Windows OS. We have full support for Mac OS. We have full support for Android, iOS. We have Raspbian agents, right? We have Linux, Unix. We have the ability to kind of assist with that IoT footprint that continues to increase, et cetera, et cetera. So, when you're thinking about that, maybe we just go back to that previous slide just for a second. As you see all these things that you can do, right, and want to do, we're trying to give you a true unified endpoint management solution without ignoring that legacy management functionality that you need as well, like the ability to patch the OS, right, or the ability to patch applications. So we'll go ahead now, hit on what it is we're accomplishing, what type of operating systems. We're going to tee up two scenarios for you here, okay? And the two scenarios are really just first and foremost this idea of remote workforce, right? And there's a million kind of ways in which this solution and this methodology could help solve the remote workforce problem that we're all faced with. The good news is we're getting more comfortable with it. Quest actually, as it happens as a company, has always been primarily a remote workforce company. So, we can kind of take our learnings and doing this personally for 12 years myself within Quest, how to address this market. And then the other thing I want to talk about is just kind of that security aspect, right? Making sure that we're creating a infrastructure that allows us to secure the diverse IT landscape that we're all facing, right? And making sure that we're not, leaving a attack vector really unaddressed, right? That also includes that IoT space that I called on. I call that out because it's important, And if you are automatically jumping ahead and thinking, well, we're often talking about VDI today, does Case do anything for me there? My general answer is yes. All the things that will generally show is if you are doing a persistent VDI implementation, then from your perspective, those shouldn't be considered any different than a workstation, right? It's just you have a little more control of that environment within that virtual session. So, those things to still kind of update, secure, and manage and ensure they're in compliance are still at play here. So without further ado, let me kick it over to James. James, why don't you go ahead and share out our product here so they can see the UI? And let's first and foremost kind of talk about that remote workforce and show them how we could perhaps help alleviate some of the, time suck on, bringing in new devices, right? That's a big use case for us here nowadays, is more and more people can't afford to ship a piece of hardware to a facility to then be imaged to begin their IT lifecycle, right? They need to use functionality like autopilot and whatnot for Microsoft to initiate that process. So take it away, James.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Kent. So varied OSs, people working from home is like one of the scenarios we want to talk about. And kind of the old workflow is, hey, order a bunch of laptops from your favorite vendor. They show up, you image them, and then you walk them over to somebody's desk. And we all know now that that desk is in their house, and it could be, pretty far away from the main office. So, managing those end users when they're not around, the diverse kind of landscape, and we need a way to handle that. We can definitely do it. So I've got our Case Cloud Mobile Device Manager pulled up, which is part of our total solution. And with this, we can tie into manage Google Play Store, which we just heard a little bit about Samsung Knox, Apple for business, Apple for school, for DP type enrollment. So we can do that, zero touch, mobile devices, MacBook, and BYOD type scenarios. We can easily set those up and manage. With Azure AD and Case linked together, you can do Windows Autopilot, be able to ship those out. And so really our thinking is, for your laptops and Mac or Windows, ship those devices to folks. They log in. We'll have created policies of initial configuration items, which I've kind of pulled up a high-level library here of, and allowing you to set up things like their Office 365 and their vendor profiles, or configuring a VPN and Wi-Fi settings, pushing certificates, initial application push, make sure the devices are encrypted and that they're securely set up. And once we've done that, so they log in, they're initially provisioned, then we're going to have our day-to-day management of our endpoints. So, and what are the typical things we're going to want to do? From a security perspective, inventory is important. So not only like what's on the device, but who has the device? Who do we assign it to? What state is that device in? Where's that device located at? And Case allow you to do all those things. So if I pull up the inventory tab here of devices, this is where all of our devices are going to reside. So Windows, Linux, Mac, IoT devices, printers, routers, switches. If you can log into it and it's on your network, really good chance it's going to be able to plug into Case and be able to pull that information back about that endpoint. And I'll just pull up a Windows example here, and we'll take a look at that. And we're going to harvest a lot of information off that endpoint. So it's a laptop, it's 5510. Up here, I can assign it out to a location and a person. So again, the asset kind of management tracking, who's got that device, who we give it to. And I've had a lot of instances where I talk to folks, and when iPads first kind of started hitting, where commercial companies were buying iPads, there wasn't really any good sense of managing and controlling that. And I talked to a number of people, like, well, we had an iPad initiative, we had a budget, we bought a bunch of iPads and gave them to people, and we don't know where they're at or who's got them. And a couple of years later, they're trying to figure that out. But something like we're proposing here, you can manage it from day one and keep track of it. So we're gonna.
So real quick, James, let me just kind of interrupt here. Sorry. So what James is showing here obviously is kind of, once you've provisioned those devices and they've done that initial setup configuration, this is our UEM kind of centralized console, that gives you that ability to manage these devices kind of now to the next level, right? So I just want to make sure everybody walks away from today with really this point as it relates to that remote workforce. The great thing about this modern management term that you guys keep hearing is that it really does provide companies such as Case the mechanisms in which they can guarantee management from initial power on, right? And so you're quite literally loading in the hardware information of that device into the systems before that device ever gets powered on, right? Anyone that's done imaging in the past should know the statement out-of-box experience, right? You sys-prep that device, you set it up to have an out-of-box experience. And that's really what these modern management functionalities are giving us, is that the basic, kind of entry point is you're providing it with a set of instructions, a set of criteria that from day one, we're ensuring that that device has an initial setup configuration to meet company policy, right? And then what James is showing here is kind of taking that level now where we need to continue to manage that device, right? And do so with this whole proliferation of devices out there, and continue to manage them from henceforth, right? Not just being handcuffed with just the feature functionality of modern management, but giving you the whole gamut of system management, right? And so that's really key here. And we want to make sure everybody walks away understanding that's where this modern management component comes into play. And while it's so important that today's day and age, as we consider, right, remote workforce and having a diverse, working landscape, which is often going to require us to pivot in and out of offices. And we all know how difficult it can be to get your users connect to VPN. This ensures that management capability regardless, right? And so, he's showing this inventory. This is kind of feeding into the systems, and that gives us that mechanism. And I think what he's going to do now is kind of pivot to now showing you like the next step, right? We have that modern management capability. We can lay those basic things. We have all this great inventory information, but being cognizant of time, let's hyper focus on that security play now, James.
Yep,
where
no
we're thinking about it, that next step, right? I'm in there, I manage, I have some agents on these devices now to ensure that I have full stack capabilities. What specific feature functionality would you like to show for security?
Yeah, really one of the first things I'd show is the ability to, remotely wipe that device or factory reset. And, if it's iOS, Android, Mac, Windows, whatever that is, and somebody's working from home, there's always a scenario where there's a separation that happens, and it's not always amicable, or somebody has lost the device. Kind of the easy button here to make sure that device is secure is hit the factory reset on it. So we can allow you to do that. Do like a clean PC on a Windows, so maybe you don't want the person didn't leave, but they need to reset and get things back to a nice state. So we can do that, unenroll and remove the things we've pushed and or wipe that endpoint. Also from a security perspective, knowing what software is on that endpoint. So we have a software catalog. I won't spend a ton of time in here, but it takes all the endpoints, normalizes that data, and shows you what you've got across your environment. So if there's unwanted things, you can blacklist them. I've just done Adobe Acrobat Reader there for fun, blacklisted that. So the unwanted things you can blacklist. There's uninstalling things you can do here under scripting. So if I want to make sure that there's software out there and I don't want it, I can come here and pick that software out of the group, and we'll build an uninstaller for you, and you can save it and run it. But really one of the main things from a security perspective is making sure that endpoint is patched as fully as it can be, and that you can, build a report on that. And, if that audit comes around, you're not compliant unless you really can, prove that you've done the things you say, that you've done. So, in our patching management module here, again, we can patch Windows, Mac, and your third-party applications. We can automate that total process. And not only that, but we can give you information about that it's happened. So I can come in here and I can look at an individual patch and see how compliant I am across my environment. So the next time there's a vulnerability out, typically Microsoft's going to release a TechNet article, and there's a list of KB numbers that, hey, if you got this, you're covered. Or, there's some things that you need to do. I can plug that in the search box and instantly know if I'm compliant, if I'm covered, and or see machines that are not covered. So I can just, I can dive into this patch and I can scroll down, I can see what machines have it. And if there were some that were missing, I can click the missing tab and see ones that, that were missing. So, not only doing the action, but being able to report back on the action to make sure you're covered and, secure with the patching. The other, thing we do with the patching is set it up so it's kind of like a TiVo. You like tell it what you want it to do and let it run. We want to set patching up in our environment, and we want it to run on a regularly scheduled time. We give you that capability. So you'll set it up, it'll run. You can automate your reporting to come back and show you guys, how well things have went, if there's any hiccups, and you can investigate those. So really, we don't want you in here day in and day out trying to do patching when you can automate that process but then give you kind of a look back.
Yeah, and I just want to call out too. So one thing that's I think worth mentioning here is, Case actually manages and maintains its own catalog. So one of the things that brings to the market and kind of differentiates us compared to some of our competitors out there is because we own both the engine and the catalogs, we kind of define our destiny on how quickly we get these things in our feeds. And so, since kind of taking that position from a product perspective, we obviously have pretty aggressive SLAs in place. However, we have for the entirety since launch been able to get Windows updates in here within hours of their release. So often before they even show up in the Windows Update feature on Windows, our own catalogs have them, which again is a huge deal, especially when you're thinking about, vulnerabilities and making sure that, you depending on your schedule or your maintenance cadence, right? You may not be able to afford to wait for those to show up in the catalog. So we're pretty excited that we've been able to not only meet our SLAs in every case, but just kill them as far as the timeline is concerned. And again, what we're bringing to the table here is not only those operating system patches, but those third-party application patches as well, right? So we truly are trying to bring you a one-stop shop so that you don't have to manage multiple, solutions or tools to accomplish all those things. There as well. James, maybe just quickly call out the feature update feature or the Windows feature updates as well. And while he's showing this, I do want to also call out that Windows 7 is something we continue to support. So as you all know, if you happen to be, I know somebody said they were on Windows XP, so I have no doubt you still have some Windows 7. If you are one of those customers who is chosen to pay for extended support, we still are managing and maintaining those catalogs so that if you have that subscription with Microsoft, we can not only help automate the deployment of that, registry key that shows that you should be getting them, but we are continuing to provide that catalog. So I wanted to call that out there as well. But yeah, go ahead, James.
Yeah, and along the lines of, just to kind of add on before we jump into this, sometimes you push a patch and it's not a good patch, like it interferes with something out. Most of the patches in our feed have the capability of doing an automated rollback. So sometimes the fix is getting something out of there, and we can help you, do that also. But as Kent was mentioning, keep all your windows on the same release, right? So we have that in our feed. There's schedules you can set up. You can automate that process, and we can look for what's on your machines. We actually automatically discover that, and you can either detect and stage that update. So if you have a low bandwidth location, or people working from home or whatever, you might want to stage it. Or we can, if it's a great bandwidth in your office and you want to just get it and do it overnight and make sure those are all updated, we can handle that also. A number of things in case are directly related to security, and our oval scanning is definitely one of those. So we can come in here and, well, one is we monthly downpull the oval catalog, and you can enable that and push it out against your machines, and run scans against your endpoints, see where you're vulnerable, and keep things addressed. Typically, we find though, if you're running patch management on a regular basis, that list is smaller. It's never going to be zero, but definitely want to stay on top of that. And another place to go and look and see where things may need to be remedied if there's a specific thing out there you're after. We also have the capability of snap scans, so you can pull those in and run those and automate those against your endpoints, as needed when you want to. And really, of all the, there's a lot of things in the product. It is fully endpoint management with a heavy emphasis on security, keeping things updated, secured, keeping the right software on the machines for the right people, blacklisting software, it's not supposed to be there. We do a lot around asset management, which would again kind of go to this, who's got what, how many seats you own. Maybe not so much security, but if you have an audit and you could lose a bunch of money, it's security in a sense that can save you money if you're on top of your license compliance. So I kind of like to throw that in there somewhere. But all the things on our product you can report on and automate that. So when you need to go back and look, I just talked to a guy today. It's like, I have surveys once a quarter, and where they send a security survey out, and I have to prove that I'm patching machines, and I don't have a way to prove it. What can you do for it? Well, yeah, we got a great module here for that. You can find your favorite patch report, and here's one, and I can automate that and have that emailed out to whoever I want as frequent as I want in whatever format. So if you have people that you need to report back to on how well things are going, it's easy enough to make happen.
Cool. Thank you, James. So
Yep.
look, to be again respectful of everybody's time and keeping to our 30-minute speaking slot, and maybe give you an opportunity for questions if there is any. Really the name of the game here is that we really try to take a layered approach to endpoint system management and security, right? So we by all means pride ourselves in providing you all the tools you need to accomplish this, right? From awareness, right? That discovery aspect, many don't even talk about. It's hard to secure something you're not even aware about it, but making sure that we give you the tools to discover and initiate management on all types of endpoints and devices, not just put you in a corner to require that you support just Windows devices. And as it happens, we were talking about Chromebooks. We do have Chromebook management. In fact, we had the first patent on Chromebook management in the industry. So it's something we pride ourselves into, being kind of on the cusp of whatever new technology hits the street. We try to be there to give you that capability you need to manage and secure those devices. So without going any longer, we thank you. Here's a link, a call to action. If you guys have any desire to check out our product, we offer a 30-day free trial. Encourage all to go sign up and take advantage of what we have to offer and get familiar with it and kind of challenge the product, kick the tire, so to speak.